Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. If you're a student, or maybe a healthcare pro, trying to wrap your head around the kind of crazy web of hospital waste protocols, well, you're in the right place. We're going to build the ultimate set of clean, organized study notes together today. We'll take all those incredibly dense regulations and flip them into a clear, visual guide that you'll actually remember. Sound good? Let's dive in.
So I want you to think about this for just a second. What actually happens to a needle right after it leaves your arm? We spent so much time focusing on the medical procedure itself, right? But there is this entire invisible life cycle of hazardous waste that kicks off the very second a doctor or nurse finishes your treatment. And today, we're making that invisible life cycle visible.
Here's our game plan for today. We're going to cover 5 main things. 1. The hidden hospital threat. 2. The segregation rulebook. 3. The color-coded system. 4. Treatment and disposal. And finally, 5. Managing spills.
All right, starting right off with Section 1, the hidden hospital threat.
Now, to really get why these strict rules even exist, we kind of have to understand the stakes. Improper biomedical waste management isn't just a slap-on-the-wrist regulatory violation, it is a massive, urgent threat to public health. So let's look at the official definition. Biomedical waste, or BMW, is literally any waste generated during the diagnosis, treatment, or immunization of humans and animals. It even covers waste from testing drugs. The key takeaway here, it's not just syringes. We're talking about a huge variety of everyday single-use items, like cut plasters, leftover blood samples, and chemical reagents.
So what's the worst that could happen if this stuff isn't handled right? Well, first off, infections. Every piece of waste from patient care is potentially infectious. It can transmit serious viruses, think typhoid, HIV, and hepatitis B and C, just through direct or indirect contact. But wait, it gets worse. You've also got airborne risks. Believe it or not, dried crusts of skin lesions can survive and spread through the air for a really long time. Then there's water contamination if untreated fluids are just dumped. And of course, discarded chemicals and dyes are massive drivers of environmental pollution. It's a really serious domino effect.
Moving right along to Section 2, the segregation rulebook.
Knowing how high those stakes are, hospitals need a completely foolproof defense mechanism. And that mechanism is proper segregation at the source. Notice I'm emphasizing at source here. You absolutely cannot toss hazardous and non-hazardous waste into the same pile and say, hey, we'll sort it out later. No way. Sorting the waste at the exact spot it's generated is rule number 1. Doing this minimizes the total volume of hazardous waste, drastically slashes the health risks for hospital workers, and is basically your frontline defense against hospital-acquired infections.
But to segregate properly, you gotta know what you're dealing with. There are 5 main categories you'll bump into. First, human and animal waste. That's your leftover blood, biopsies, soiled bandages. Second is plastic waste, like IV tubing and gloves. Third is sharp waste, so your needles and scalpels. Fourth, pretty straightforward, is glass waste. And fifth, this one's kind of wild, metallic body implants? Yup, that includes discarded orthopedic screws, joint components, and even old pacemakers.
All right, Section 3, the color-coded system. Okay, so we know the threats, and we've got our categories. But how on earth do we get thousands of exhausted hospital workers to sort this perfectly every single time? Enter the colored bins: yellow, red, white, and blue. And what's super fascinating is the engineering behind these bins. To stop dangerous leaks, they're lined with special, non-chlorinated plastic bags that have to be exactly 75 micrometers thick. Not to mention, every single bag has to prominently display that classic international biohazard symbol.
Now, if you're a student, I want you to take a mental screenshot of this right now. This table is basically your master study matrix. It boils all those complex regulations down into one highly testable place. It links the bin color to the exact waste type and then to the specific treatment method required. We're going to walk through these one by one so they stick in your brain for good.
Let's kick it off with yellow. The yellow bin is strictly for the absolute most serious biological and chemical hazards. This is your go-to for human and animal anatomical waste. It's for anything soaked in blood like cotton or bandages, plus expired medicines, cytotoxic drugs, and heavy-duty chemical waste. Next up is red. And here's a super easy memory trick for you. R is for red, and R is for recyclable plastics. You use this bin for contaminated plastic stuff: tubing, IV sets, catheters, urine bags, gloves. The really crucial detail to remember here is that while these items are completely contaminated when they get tossed, the plastic itself will eventually be chemically treated and sent off for recycling. It never goes to a landfill. Rounding out our colors, we've got white and blue. White bins are always translucent, puncture-proof, and tamper-proof. They are built specifically for sharps, needles, scalpels, blades, basically anything that would slice right through a regular plastic bag. Blue, on the other hand, is usually a cardboard box with blue markings. That one is exclusively for broken or discarded glassware and those metallic body implants we talked about earlier.
Which brings us to Section 4, treatment and disposal methods. So once the waste is perfectly sorted and hauled off the hospital floor, what actually happens to it? Because the end game isn't just tossing it in a dumpster. There are 3 big goals here. First, completely wipe out pathogens and toxins to make it safe. Second, shrink the overall volume of the waste. And third, this is huge for public safety, physically shred or mutilate items like syringes and scalpels so nobody can ever illegally reuse them.
To hit those goals, facilities rely on a couple of main methods. On one side, you have heat-based treatments, stuff like autoclaving and microwaving. These use intense heat pushing 100 degrees Celsius to completely sterilize lab waste, plastics, and sharps. On the flip side, you have chemical disinfection. This is basically a 1% bleach bath, where liquid waste and leftover blood samples have to soak for at least half an hour to kill off any pathogens.
But what about the really heavy stuff in the yellow bin, those human and animal body parts? For that, facilities bring in incineration. This is the extreme process of burning waste at a blistering 1,000 degrees Celsius to completely turn it to ash. It is incredibly effective, for sure. But there's a catch. It emits really dangerous toxic fumes, like dioxins and heavy metals. Because of that, incineration is strictly limited to very specific, non-plastic anatomical waste.
Finally, Section 5, Emergency Protocol for Managing Spills.
We've gone over the rules and disposal methods, but let's be real. What happens when things go wrong on the floor? Well, you grab one of these, a standard hospital spill kit. You use it for blood, chemicals, even mercury spills. And the absolute golden rule here, printed right in the manual, every single spill must be treated as if it is highly infected right from the jump. You'll notice the kit's got everything you need ready to deploy: masks, gloves, absorbent materials, and bleach solutions.
If you're ever standing there when a spill happens, here's the exact protocol you follow. Step 1, gear up. Put on your gloves and mask. Step 2, grab your cotton or tissue to absorb the spill. And remember, that soiled stuff goes straight into the yellow bag. Step 3, never, ever pick up sharps with your bare hands. Collect them safely and get them into a puncture-proof box. Step 4, flood the whole surface with that 1% bleach solution. And Step 5, this is the one that always catches people on exams. You take off your contaminated gloves and you throw them into the red bag. Because remember, they are contaminated recyclable plastics.
And there you have it. We've decoded the colors, the categories, and the emergency protocols. I know it's a ton of information, but the structured logic behind all this is actually pretty amazing. It keeps healthcare workers safe and it keeps our environment clean. So I want to leave you with a quick thought. Next time you visit a hospital, or even just your local dental clinic, take a look around the room, see if you can spot those colored bins, and ask yourself, do you know exactly what invisible, hidden dangers are being safely neutralized inside that yellow bin? Thanks so much for hanging out with me for this explainer, and happy studying!